Our closing keynote, I think, will inspire and empower you. She so embodies the drive of the next generation of women leaders in construction, in carving their unique paths to success, and in solving the global industry's most pressing problems. What else could you expect from a US-trained engineer who was born and raised in Tunisia, speaks 4 languages, and has studied and worked on 3 continents? Please join me in welcoming the founder of the Advanced Work Packaging Institute and Concord Project Technologies, Olfa Hamdi.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, first of all, I would like to say that, I attended countless conferences, mostly in the petrochemical, energy, construction sectors. And until today, I have never thought of myself as a woman in construction. But it's so refreshing to do that. So I'd like to thank P&A and ENR for making this happen, for gathering these amazing, inspiring women in this very same room. And thank the team that put all of this together, and let's give them a round of applause. So let's do that. Okay, so, I prepared the speech, and I prepared an introduction until a couple days ago. Something interesting happened, so I'm going to start with that. I was having dinner with some members of my team and a potential company that we're going to have, a business collaboration with, discussing a business transaction. And there was this amazing lady in the, on the table, and I was telling her, I'm doing the closing remarks for the Women in Construction Conference. And she says, wow, what an honor. What are you talking about? And I tell her, I'm talking about trying to share some ideas and lessons learned about how to break the mold as a woman in construction. And for me, breaking the mold means not just being in construction, it's actually leading in construction. So get into those leadership positions and, leading. And another man, the same table, he looks at me and he says, what you're doing, you're asking for war, you're gonna get your fight. I'm like, on the back of my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with you? But then I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, actually, it's not a woman thing, it's not a woman issue. It's just as soon as you start looking for leadership, you're competing for decision, you're competing for power, and that's okay. It's gonna make some people uncomfortable. So what got me into this industry is really, at the end of the day, and it's something that is common to all of us, is one word. And that word is impact. Impact is what got me into this industry. We're in a pretty cool industry. We build great buildings, skyscrapers, refineries, transmission lines, wind farms, wind power farms, transportation, so infrastructure. We build entire cities. We actually change the face of this world for our human condition and human living. So we're really at the front of changing our world. My name is Olfa Hamdi. I was born in Tunisia. For those who don't know Tunisia, it's a great nation in North Africa, Mediterranean country, and a developing one. And I've seen the impact that construction has left on the people there, as I'm sure many of you, while traveling the world, can see that. And I believe that construction as an industry driving economic development is very powerful in changing and driving change more than just politics and ideology. As a woman in this industry, like you, I'm proud to be on those front lines driving change, but also I'd like to invite you to want to lead. Because we're already leading by being in this industry, so let's lead the industry to a better future safer future, more productive future, and better return, economic return. So to do that, I'm going to share with you some of the lessons I've come through, looking backward, but also I want to share with you my journey, which may not, it may not look like exactly like yours, and that's okay, but I would argue that we have a lot of things in common that we can learn from. So that very same sense of impact and possibility is what got me into project management specifically as a subset of expertise, profession, discipline within our construction industry. And that led me to work on the development of the advanced work packaging methodology. I'm not going to bother you with all of the technical details around that. You can read all about it. But the one thing that was unique about it is when I started my research on advanced work packaging, working with many companies, I realized that that kind of innovation is going to require a shift in the mentalities and a shift in the way we execute projects. Advanced work packaging basically is a method and a project management system that helps projects get aligned and project stakeholders, systems, information, all get aligned from very early in the project till the end. And you know, construction projects last years. That's very hard to achieve. But that kind of innovation, that kind of change can make a lot of people uncomfortable. The same way having women in construction can make some people uncomfortable. But innovation in general, change in general, makes people uncomfortable. But this is the thing. To develop the advanced work packaging methodology, I had to work with countless of project teams all around the world. One of the most successful teams. And you all know there are very few projects that end up on time and on budget. So when a team achieved that, we want to know what they did. But I found out something very unique about our industry. And some of our speakers across this day and a half have mentioned that. I found out that there is a willingness by the majority of our people, women and men, to embrace change and accept new ideas and actually look for new ideas. This whole idea that construction is resistant to change, I think is a myth. And women in construction, we can make that happen. Women in particular have reached out to me to learn more about the advanced work packaging methodology and actually take it back to their teams, companies, departments. In fact, last year alone, I personally, in addition to my other team members, but I personally trained over 100 capital project engineers. Only 2 of those 100 were women. But those 2 women were the reason 30 men were trained. They were the one that took the initiative, and that's what impact is. I understand that 9% is of women in construction is, we want it to be better, but it's also about quality, and that's what leadership is all about, impact. So, in a way, what our industry also needs is not just innovation in terms of, like innovation that looks like, 3D glasses and laser scanning and in a much sophisticated way. I mean, these are all great innovations and we need them. But we also need innovation in terms of systems, in terms of ideas, in terms of our working habits and methods to be able to have a new way of using our human capital. So, as I worked on the advanced work packaging methodology, I immediately saw an opportunity. And, it was a solid, strong concept for delivering capital projects, focused on really 3 major principles: construction-driven planning, construction-driven engineering, and full-scale integration of people. Now, for those, I'm sure all of you actually get a sense of the challenge regarding that. If I'm asking a capital project team at very early, initiation basically phases, to have a construction manager on board leading the creation of a path of construction, we all know that the CM is hired, literally a couple months before the start of construction. So everybody's going to say, no, we don't do business like this. So I saw really in those successful teams the potential we could actually have from aligning those perspectives from early on. So what I decided to do is to do that outside of the traditional corporate environment, which is comfortable in the way we do business. In a way, I look at capital projects specifically as something like a Breitlink's pilot watch, where all the pieces, they have to move in an aligned way, and they have to be perfectly aligned for the whole thing to work. If you want that to happen over a number of years, because that's what it takes to deliver capital projects, that's your challenge, really. So I put that into, with the great team of innovators, we put together what we call a project predictability package. A project predictability package, and a project predictability package is basically putting all together all the activities and all the services and all the needs, whether it's training, coaching, technology, that do impact your cost and schedule and that do impact the way your team collaborates together in one single budget line item. So we're trying to rebudget how capital projects are being planned and estimated. That, in a way, is a change. And to make that happen, I couldn't do it in a traditional corporate environment. So, knowing that nobody gives you the title of a CEO or a founder, sometimes you need to be willing to take an unexpected way and an unexpected path. So I launched Concord Project Technologies. Today, we work with leading companies, owner companies like ExxonMobil and the like, leading EPC companies, major discipline contractor companies, some of whom are in the room. I see people from Rosendin here. And speaking, by the way, of men who support their counterparts, I'd like to recognize a client who's a male who just came to support me in this speech. So Eric, thank you for making that happen. Thank you for coming. So, the owner-contractor relationship is not always that bad, Anyway, so, we work together to set this roadmap of predictability, on-time, on-budget delivery of capital projects. It's a conscious roadmap to make that happen. And at the end of the day, we all look at projects. For us, construction is about finishing that job safely. That's number one. And then, after all, we want to finish the job as expected, so predictably. Aren't we all chasing predictability? Concord was born as a global company from day one, with pilot projects not just in the US, but in countries like Egypt and France. And as the company continues to grow, I keep asking myself, as a woman entrepreneur in this industry, and there was a lady that mentioned that yesterday, she said, there are not a lot of women owners, women entrepreneurs in our industry. We need more of those so that we can have our own, support system in place. How do my own beliefs and my own journey impact my company? And that led me to think even more. How does project management as a profession impact our industry? And how can we women actually make that happen? Project management is, basically is about turning bold visions into practical realities. And we can look at our journeys from a project management standpoint, So, when I started out, enough with the technical details. I'm going to go into the woman thing now, That's what all we're here for anyway. But when I started out, all I had was a burning desire to prove myself, ambition for ambition's sake, And then when you take a look back and you start connecting the dots, that's when you, try to make sense for what you have done and the choices you have made. So let me ask you this. This is the question that's going to frame this closing remark. As women in construction, have we broken the mold yet? Yes? No? Okay. Well, you know, I try to stay faithful to the one rule I live with by life, which is I don't have the answers to every question. And I should not. There are just so many. So what I'm going to try to do is actually, instead of telling you about the blueprint of breaking the mold, I'm just going to share elements of my journey of how I broke parts of the mold. You know, breaking the mold is going to take all of us. And it's going to take, you know, every single one of us thinking about how can you, at an individual level, break your own mold around you. You know, in this room, we definitely have brilliant engineers, women engineers, executives, managers, craftswomen. We have, throughout this conference, we have heard from coaches. We have heard from, you know, really trailblazers who have cleared the path for us. And, you know, I heard people thank in the previous generation. I want to reiterate that. You know, thank you for making it easier for us. And I think that should be a lesson for my generation to say every single day, or maybe once a year at this conference, you know, what are we doing to make it easier for the next generation? So let's you know, let me share those lessons with you from my journey, you know, from the mining regions of my home country, Tunisia, to founding, you know, those two research and development consulting firms. And let me start with the first one. So the first one, I call it taking chances is the way to go. I'll rephrase that and say taking chances should be a career strategy. And I'll tell you how. You know, as a background, yeah, I was born in Kafsa, in Tunisia, and then went to spend most of my formative year in Tunis, the capital. I was a great student. You know, from the beginning, I was always, you know, seated firmly in the front rows of the classroom with my glasses. And by the way, you know, I have a soft spot for people sitting in the front rows of every conference. Yeah, so that's good. Anyway, so if I scored 19.5 out of 20 in my exams, I would be overwhelmed with disappointment. That's the kind of person I was. I would not accept anything less than the best of myself and my work. I was conservative, very conservative in the sense that I focused squarely on my homework, my studies, you know, being first, doing, you know, excelling at school. And I got ranked actually second at the national level in my home country, and that earned me a scholarship to study in France engineering in one of the top engineering schools. And by the way, I was disappointed that I was second, so you get the picture. But what I learned afterwards is that success at school can teach you sometimes all the wrong lessons. The education system in too many parts of the world is geared toward, you know, churning out excellent workers, those who can obediently follow the rules, complete the task. And these are not, I mean, these are good things to have, especially as they translate into self-discipline. But these are not the characteristics we need to succeed in an economy today where it requires an appreciation of what it means to live in a diverse society, what it means to, you know, advance in an industry that's changing, like the construction industry. What we need today is we need creativity, we need boldness, we need the willingness to take chances. And we aren't teaching our young people to do that, and especially women. And I'll touch base a little bit on that later on. We actually learn taking chances on the job when it literally becomes you don't have a choice. You just have to take that chance. So let me tell you how I took some chances in my journey. And I hope that would actually get you to think a little bit about whether you have taken chances before or whether you need to take even more chances. So taking chances is when you can't afford the tuition of a top college, yet believing that you belong there and still apply for that top college, like I did. And no, I didn't have wealthy parents who were willing to shell out $500,000 or fake me into the crew team to make that happen. But I did. I took my chance. It happened. Taking a chance is going for that unpaid internship in the US, all the while working 6 months before that in France, before and after school, sometimes for 16 hours a day, to be able to pay for that. That's what taking chances mean. Taking chances is asking to lead the audit mission of a multi-billion-dollar petrochemical project in Saudi Arabia, all the while being refused a visa to go there, do your job, because you're an unmarried Muslim woman, like I did. It didn't matter that my expertise was unique in the capital projects market space, or that this organization, requested me to help them close out the project. As an unmarried Muslim woman, I was not able to travel to Saudi. I still am not able to travel to Saudi Arabia to do my job. Not without a legal guardian anyway, or a husband. And I don't know, finding a husband in 2 weeks, that was a little bit hard to, But that's the world we live in. It is still not an easy place for women to lead, okay? You can be part of a mission, yes, but to lead, it's still not an easy place. But this is an increasingly flat world where, I never set a foot in that room for that audit mission in Saudi Arabia, but I led every single moment of it via conference call. And I sent male colleagues, actually, to help me while there. Taking a chance is going back home to be with your family when they needed you, and yet still putting in way more hours and more effort in your job, more than what you would have been put in while in the office. That's what taking chances mean. Taking a chance is actually accepting on challenges, even if you don't look like the ideal candidate for it. I was only 25 years old when I found myself teaching a room of military veterans, generals, colonels, captains, about the principles of project management and how it could help them improve their military construction operations. As a woman, I learned that there is a certain beauty in that surprise factor when you're the underdog. You walk into those rooms and nobody's like, is she the right person to be here? And then because you deliver the best of your work, you change minds. And that's the best part, really, when you start changing perceptions. It is the willingness to take on rooms like this, even when the reception is not initially on our side as women, that led me to teach at the highest defense institutions in the country. Well, taking chances means venturing in what is considered a traditionally man's world and mastering the game by not backing down. That's what women in construction do. Every single day we walk into a job site or go into those meeting rooms, but we need not stop there. We need to lead. I'm sure all of you have stories of how all the sacrifices you've made and the chances you took at some point or another in your lives and careers. But for me, as an immigrant woman to this great nation of ours, taking chances for me was more obvious when I decided to file for what we call a self-petition green card and actually take a loan to pay for it. It might, at the time, it might have made much more sense to go with my corporate employer sponsoring me for a work visa. That would have been virtually, the sure thing. But it was not the right path for me if I wanted to take my predictability package, my innovation, and lead in the industry. So, I decided to go for the, self-petition, which is also called the Einstein visa. Big shoes to fill. I didn't invent relativity. Come on. But I had to demonstrate that I had what's called extraordinary abilities. And my mentor was telling me, what is more extraordinary than a woman in construction? It was flattering. But Of course, I didn't get it because I was a woman in construction alone. Speaking of that, privilege, I wish. But it has obviously helped that my invention on advanced work packaging has turned out to become a best practice in the industrial construction sector. Some of the largest oil and gas companies started pre-qualifying contractors based on the methodology, and EPC companies that used it and got mature in it reduced up to 25% in their labor cost. So it's a major change in our industrial world, especially in large complex projects. But still, it was not sure that I would get that green card, and that loan will not disappear after the decision, but I still took that path. So, taking chances, I mean, these are just examples, but taking chances is, for me, it really means when you do something that makes your heart race faster. It's especially true when you're young and you can compensate for the lack of experience with an abundance of opportunity and energy. So take chances whenever you can. Just do it. My father once told me, before you reach the age of 30, do not make career decisions based on the dollar amount you get at the end of the year. If you do the right thing, if you go into the right industry, if you work in the right environment, if you grow, money will follow. Women in construction, as I said, are taking chances by the mere fact of just joining this industry. But again, we need to not stop there. We need to lead. So that takes me to the second lesson learned. I hope the first one was not too long. I just have 2 hours more to go. That's it. Anyway, so let's get ready for the second. So the second is about progress. Always think in terms of progress. So I see career progress actually as three types. So we have progress in terms of learning, technical progress. That's basically when you're in your job, you're learning, you're growing, you're becoming, on a path of delivering the best version of your work. That's progress. Progress type 2 is hierarchy progress or responsibility progress, which is having the chance to lead a team to new levels of productivity, to make a project happen, to be a manager, lead the portfolio. And the third type of progress is financial progress, which is scoring finally that bonus or that raise, in a way having a sense that there is monetary reward that is adequate to the efforts that you're putting in. Speaking of the financial progress, I mean, a lot of people say, I like this quote by Joanne Rivers. She says, people say that money is not the key to happiness, but I always figured that if you have enough money, you can have a key made. So we tend to not talk about it, but let's not forget about that financial progress. When you aren't making progress in at least one of those three, it may be a sign that it's time to move on to another environment. I arrived at that point in my early corporate career. I was excellent at what I was doing, going faster than the expected path, and I could not learn enough to satisfy my curiosity or desire to learn. And I didn't see a connection between my efforts and my progression in the ranks of the company. It's a dilemma in consulting companies, it's a pretty flat organization, and nor my ability to earn more, frankly. So, psychologists call this learned helplessness, which is when you no longer see a correlation between your efforts and the results. I then decided it was time for me to move on and make a change in my environment. Yes, you have to give some time to things. You have to give situations time. But you also have to know when to leave when progress is no longer served. Starting a business was inevitable for me as I grew more conscious that I needed the right environment to deliver what I wanted all along, which is implementing my project predictability package and advanced work packaging to the global industry. During my days as an analyst, in preparation for that, I used to wake up at 5 a.m., spend about an hour doing online search, reaching out to people. I would call it business search at the time, and I would do the same after I go back home to try to find out what is this path gonna look like for me. Learning meant reaching out to people to learn from and not being shy of asking questions and asking for advice. I mean, maybe I got a 10% response rate for all the people I reached out to, and I'm happy to do that. I mean, large corporations, they send marketing emails all the time, and if they get 3-4% click rates, they're happy. So why am I taking those, people not responding personally? Just reach out. You can't expect a mentor to appear from the heavens. You need to ask. And my advice on this, which might not, which might be perceived controversial in the Me Too era, maybe outside of this room. I think women in construction were pretty comfortable with these kind of things, but is actually to find a male mentor. Outside the walls of this room, this is pretty much still a man's world. And to be able to lead and break the mold, we need to learn some of the rules of the game, and men know those, and they can share those with you in that mentorship environment. And great discussion about those things that may prevent women to benefit from this male-female mentorship. I have few simple rules that I work with, and they've been working very fine with me. So I'll share them with you. I was not actually expected to say this in my speech, but maybe it can help somebody somewhere. So some of those rules is I do not go on one-on-one dinners. Lunch is fine, Just try to avoid situations where it's 50-50, It could create mixed messages. Like, for example, situations where alcohol is served on a one-on-one basis. And as long as you keep the setting, basically the environment professional, you can have all sorts of relationship with men, obviously professional ones. And that works wonders. And you don't have to have just one mentor. For every situation, you can reach out to people and ask for advice, and you can get mentors based on specific situations, journeys, and so on. Sally Helgeson, in the opening remarks, she spoke about how women rise. So I want to add this, if I may. She mentioned basically the idea, this concept of behavior. And for me, behavior is about action. You take action, you'll start developing the behavior. So we rise by cumulative progress associated with boldness. And that's my third and final lesson learned, which is be bold by never apologizing for wanting success. Men do this all the time, by the way. I respect that in them. So never apologize for success. Okay, what does that mean? Well, if there's one thing we have in common as women in construction is that at one point or another, we have been condemned for indirectly or directly for the sheer audacity of wanting to succeed or aiming to succeed. Many of you can certainly recall those times in a meeting where somebody called you passionate, or ambitious, and we all know what that's code for. Our society also sends mixed signals from the beginning. We hear time and time again that it's shallow for women to aim for success, although it's something we should apologize for. I certainly saw this as I stepped out from the path of a worker to and assumed the role of a leader. Now, I was lucky because I was raised with a father with a PhD in computer science who believed in research and doing one's homework, whether you're a man or a woman. And he accepted nothing less but excellence in my work and studies. He actually never allowed me exceptions for being female. Even when I was at my, in the summer at my grandfather's olive tree farms, I used to be working just all like my male cousins and brothers, gathering olives, selling them in the local market, getting my cut as to get my pocket money, basically. I was given no special treatment for being a girl. My mother is actually also an example for me. She's inspiring. She's the most ambitious woman I know, and she continues to improve. She got her driver license at the age of 50, and she started her first business at the age of 52, after having grown up all the children. So that's ambition. Now, it's from her that I learned self-worth, which is to never apologize for wanting to be rewarded for what you deserve. And never apologize for striving to break the mold. I have taken really those lessons to heart. So let me share with you one simple example in the corporate world of what it means to not apologize for success or actually wanted to be rewarded for that. If you write a paper, do not settle for less than your name on that paper. It happened to me and all too many of us. I had to ask for the credit of my work. I mean, it sounds pity, but let's face it, the paper and the work, the paper was my idea, so was the work. It was hard for me to stand behind my manager's door, you know, trying to prepare my speech, balancing firm talk and diplomacy to ask to be on that, you know, work product. But these kind of things are your baby step to claiming your worth in the corporate world. It's not a one-shot thing, it's cumulative, small steps. Claiming your self-worth in the corporate world may still be an ongoing challenge for us, women in construction, women engineers in particular. I actually believe we are disadvantaged because our training focused so much on the quantitative side of things, compared to other women in other professions, you know, legal professions, business, and so on. We focus so much on quantitative things that we didn't develop that side of the emotional intelligence that helps us in our jobs later on. So I think developing those skills will really help us become more effective construction leaders. So these are the 3 lessons. Just gonna go back, actually. Now let me try to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. There is no magic recipe for success. There is none. But my journey has taught me that there are critical ingredients that may benefit virtually all of us, independently of how our journeys are. Those ingredients include, you know, those 3 lessons, but they also include mentoring, networking, a desire to embrace growth and to improve oneself. I have a unique vantage point as a native of a nation, Tunisia, that has shown the world that true revolution is possible, even if not perfect. Tunisia is the real true working success of the Arab Spring, and an example that if a society can raise or rise to demand freedom, so can each one of us. I grew up in a system, actually, where, luckily, where my school grades were given to me independently of my sex or my social status. They were given to me only based on merit. And I wish our corporate world was 100% based on merit, but it's not. But merit is your foundation. You know, we're construction people. We understand if you don't have a solid foundation, the rest, the structure is not going to stand. It's not going to last anyway. Our foundation is merit and excellence in technical competency. That educational system that I was raised in gave me, you know, allowed me that scholarship to France, where I earned my first Master of Science in Engineering, which later opened the door for that, you know, North African young girl all the way to make it all the way to the United States, all the way to Texas, all the way to the great University of Texas at Austin, where I earned my second Master of Science in Project Management for construction projects and a law degree in construction disputes from Texas Law School. I was able to even conceive this future because of my culture, because of Tunisia's proud history on equality, despite what the idea that we think of, those restrictions and rules for majority Muslim countries. Women, as you can see here in those pictures, Tunisian women, women's rights in Tunisia have been a reality since 1956, including the right to marry who they wish, regardless of their religion, establishing legal equality between men and women, like in matters like divorce, access to the job market, and ensuring free education and healthcare for both genders. In 2011, and those pictures are from 2011, women were central to that uprising, to getting the Arab Spring started. At the center of that movement, showing the world what was possible when people spoke up and demanded freedom. Now, why am I sharing you these historic facts? I'm sharing these historic elements and this background because I believe as much as we want to take credit for our success, there are so many others that have paved the way for us, and we have to recognize their contributions. I see my journey in the construction industry and in America specifically as a small part of a larger mission of what immigrant women do every single day in this country to help change attitudes. Whether in the construction industry or in Washington, they are trying, and they're, by leading by example, they are making others see a different image, a different perception of what an immigrant woman need to look like. That is breaking an even larger mold. Each of us can define what it means to break the mold, but all of us, whatever our challenges, we can make it happen. Now, this has been an amazing conference. You can count on me being here next year. And I'm actually encouraging other people to make it happen too. Now, let's go back out there in our worlds and show the world what women in construction are capable of. Thank you. I don't know if I should take that as a good sign or a bad sign, though.
Wait a minute. I think we're just getting geared up here. Mike, any questions from anybody? Voice of God?
Okay, there is one there.
Right in the front.
Good morning. What was one of your most proud moments that you had in this entire journey?
Well, thank you for the question. Actually, I'm going to answer it in an indirect way, and then I'll get to your question. Part of this mentorship exercise that I'm having is that my mentors keep telling me, you need to work, you're too humble. You need to be happy with what you're doing. For me, and I learned this with time, is that I don't focus on success. I really, obsess about my failures, actually. And they take a big, large portion in my head. The one thing that I'm proud of is that I'm getting to a point, I see myself making progress. I'm getting to a point where I am in peace with me not achieving everything I want to do. And just being okay with that. But obviously, I feel that sense of pride when my parents basically look at me and say, we're proud that you're in this world. And so, that's what parents, I think that sense of making your parents proud is, what drives us in the beginning. And obviously now, actually, there was this small thing that happened. I was invited last 2 months ago to share my experience as a Tunisian woman that, left Tunisia. I was 17 when I left, and I was, wanted to share basically the good things that I see in the way the American society works, and the things we could learn from the American experience, both in business, but also at work, in society, in the system, in the political system as well. And I went back home, and I was on national TV, and it was a program that I went there for like 20 minutes. And I was speaking about this genuine experience and the appreciation I find and the good I see in this great country of ours. And the thing went viral. Like over 1 million people watched it and reached out. And for me, I felt a sense of pride because I felt like I was able to connect a bridge between a majority Muslim country and the United States, although, despite all those perceptions that we have about either worlds. So that was the most recent element that made me proud. So.
Hi, Olfa, Jennifer Papantonio from Picard and Abramson. And on behalf of all of us, we really want to thank you for being here today. It was just wonderful to hear your story. Is there a particular challenge, and I know we've all had many, right? Everyone in this room has. But is there a particular challenge that you faced that you said, you know, this is something that is just a hallmark of my experience that you haven't shared yet? And again, you've shared so many, but is there anything that comes to mind that you would share with us before we finish for today?
I actually can't think of too many. I think we need lunch to discuss that. But I think I'll think of the one thing that actually keeps coming back because it's part of my daily challenge, which is when you step out of the established corporate environment where you're in a system where there is the company name recognition in place and you're working in a clear path of business development, and then when you step outside that and now you're going to clients and your offering is your expertise, your invention, and not an established, brand name, that's a major challenge. And at some point I even actually cried, saying, out of the people I spoke to, why am I not making as much success as I want? I mean, especially early when I started my company and landing those big contracts. But I used to do that when I was in my previous employer, right? But that's the thing. That's a challenge. And my thinking is that with time, it's not about being a woman or not woman, although it's hard to lead in the construction industry, but it's actually, I don't think that's maybe it's 5% of the reason, but 95% is that we are in an industry where if you're bringing something new, you need to do that initial investment and effort to reach out, explain, spend the time, build the relationship, and that takes months. It doesn't happen over time. So get that appreciation of time and having a longer-term vision, that was hard to learn. It's still a challenge because I still want to go faster, although with all the successes made, I still want to grow the company and all of that. But just having that appreciation of time, that success doesn't happen over time. And actually, this reminded me, I like sometimes going through some of those quotes and reading about those inspirations. I don't know if it's a woman thing, but we love quotes. Yeah. But there was this quote that says, I'm rephrasing it, it's not exactly the same wording, but greatness is when you get to a stage where you appreciate that nothing great happens every day. But small things happen, and that leads to greatness. That's like, that was something that I kept with me. I hope I answered your question.
We have one last question from the app. Did you ever find your perfectionism stunting to your growth? And if so, how did you overcome it?
That's a great question. Yeah, my number one challenge is this perfectionist thing, really. The issue with that is that it prevents you from delegating, okay? It sometimes makes it harder for you to work in teams. And if you are like that by nature, or maybe you're a control freak, yeah. We need to, talking about behaviors and improving ourselves, we just need to be conscious about it, develop it, and actually learn how to do it, and learn how to trust others, how to give away work. And actually with time, I found out that it made my life easier. And that was like, okay, I don't want to do that again anymore. I don't want to go back to that previous version of me where I want to do everything by myself and make it perfect. So my advice is just go ahead and start delegating. Sometimes you'll choose people to work with. They turn out to be the wrong people to work with. You just take on that, the responsibility for those consequences and you move on. But with time, I think in our industry, we're blessed by having really high quality people. So it's really rare to find that, inefficient relationship. Generally speaking, you're going to find people that you're going to work with that are great. And again, this takes me to, another quote regarding this that basically says, I'm trying to rephrase the quote, but basically says, when you're working with others, if you do not trust them, they know you didn't trust them, and they're not going to do a good job. So somehow there is that sense of empowering the other person working with you, and I'm really worked on that. This takes me to an even larger point, which is, I think Leonardo Dicaprio says this. By the way, I would have never imagined that I would get DiCaprio mentioned in a Women in Construction Industry conference, but he said something really interesting. He says, every phase of your life is going to require a new you. And somehow when you're, the phase when you're a student, then, the phase where you're, for me, it was, as an analyst and a consultant in a corporation, and then auditor, and then entrepreneur. Those phases, it required a new me, which means I'm building new skills, and one of them is getting over my perfectionism.
Yes. How can companies, what have you learned from your experience to advise companies to keep people with new ideas in the company and to listen to them?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And by the way, I still believe, had I had the right environment in an established corporation that fosters innovation and breaking into new areas, things would have gone way faster. But this being said, my advice, first of all, is as leaders in companies, please do recognize that innovation can come from anybody, not just middle management, innovation can come from anyone. So whenever there is a conversation, create channels for ideas, improvement suggestions to come from everybody. No hierarchy involved in that, because otherwise we get into the politics of the corporation. Is this going to threaten my job? Is this a future manager? And we start getting into really sensitive, counterproductive behavior. So that's number one. Number two, I believe, especially in our industry, and I want to emphasize this much, if in your corporation, even if it's a small consulting firm like mine, if you do not have a serious research and development budget, get ready to get out of business. You need to budget and spend money on research and development. So do that. And pay attention to the third element, which is there are certain people, certain engineers, certain technicians that are meant, that's their profile, they are meant to be critical thinkers, to always want to look for the better solution, not just execute. Execution is great, but also, having that critical thinking, continuous improvement effort is important. So create the environment and the career path for that. Not just, make it a sort of a one-person initiative somewhere which is going to die away. So create career paths for continuous improvement. So these are the three main things I'm thinking about. There's another quote that actually can help with this. I love this quote, especially when there is unproductive conversations in a room, which is lead, follow, or get out of the way. Okay? I think leading and following are two great things, and you cannot be a leader if you cannot follow, by the way. Okay, so if you're a bad follower, you can't be a good leader. So lead, follow, and then those who just keep getting into the way of positive, constructive work, just, find a better place for them. It's as simple as that. Thank you. Thanks. Do I need to pick up my stuff?
Yes, you do. Olfa, on behalf of everyone here, I am certain, and myself, I wanted to thank you.
Thanks so much
for sharing your journey with us. It has been inspiring to me. I have learned so many things by listening to you, and I think something that you said I just want to bring back to focus is that as one of the dinosaurs in the room, when I look at you, so young, so accomplished, so visionary, it brings me such hope for where we are going in advancing women in construction. So thank you for being a part of that and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. You know, this is emotional, so, but I'm just gonna avoid to cry. That would be too much of a, you know, a girl thing. So let's finish the conference without tears. So, anyway,
Thank you, Olfa. Thank you.